Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Monroe Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting for June the 5th, 2025. It's 7:02 p.m. If you'll please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And sorry for the lack of air conditioning tonight, but just going to have to keep your cools tonight. We'll do a roll call starting on my right.
Dominic Smergalino, alternate commissioner.
Ryan Condon, Commissioner.
Leanne Ambrosi, Commissioner.
Bruno Laney, Commissioner. Robert Westland, Commissioner.
Kathleen Gallagher, Planning and Zoning Administrator.
And I'm Mike O'Reilly, Chairman. We're going to move on to general public participation at this point. If there's anyone here that would like to address the commission on any issues that are not on the agenda, this would be the time to do that. If anyone here would like to address the commission at this point, please raise your hand and you'll be recognized. That includes anyone online. If you have a raise my hand button, please press that button. We'll see it and recognize you. Okay. Seeing none, we have on the agenda number 4, special meeting discussion.
Planning and Zoning Commission typically only has one meeting in August and one meeting in July, just to allow commissioners to go on vacation and because of the 4th of July holiday. However, due to Juneteenth, which is a federal holiday that occurs for 2 weeks from today, there's no second meeting in June for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So because it's 6 weeks until the July 17th meeting, which is pretty extensive, we're not just skipping one meeting, we are actually skipping 2 meetings because of the 4th of July holiday. We put it on for a potential scheduling of that meeting. I think the 2 days that have been thrown out is June 18th, which is the Wednesday, so 2 weeks from yesterday, or June 26th, which is 3 weeks, which would have split the difference between the full 6 weeks. The reason why we're doing this at the beginning is because if we continue any of our public hearings, we have to continue it to a specific date. So if we have the opportunity to continue it to a June meeting, we will note that at that time. So is there any appetite to have a second meeting in June so that we can continue or close out several items?
Well, why don't we pencil one in for June 18th, and then we can always cancel it if we have nothing on the agenda, if we don't need to continue anything for tonight.
I won't be there.
How does that sound?
Does June 18th work?
Not for me.
I just want to make sure we would have some sort of plan.
Works for me.
Works for me. So June 18th, 7 p.m.?
If needed.
Okay. So potentially a special meeting, June 18th at 7 p.m. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to public hearings. I think are we going to start the first public hearing?
64 Cambridge entered a request for an extension to the July 17th meeting. They are still in front of the Inland Wetland Commission and are working through a couple of those items with revisions to their plans. They're hoping to get feedback from the Inland Wetland Commissions before they come back to Planning and Zoning. So they are being continued to the July 17th meeting.
All right, that's set for July 17th. All right, moving on, we have the next public hearing, SUB 2025-02, file 1279, that's 709, 733 Monroe Turnpike.
As discussed at the last meeting, this was presented for the subdivision for the community center at 709 Monroe Turnpike, the previous St. Jude's Religious Education School. We continued that because we are waiting for the Conservation and Water Resource Commission comments, which we should be getting at the beginning of June. This is one of those items that we could continue to the June 18th meeting, and we'd be ready to vote on it at that point. I also want to make sure all the commissioners, it is brought to your attention that we did have a comment memo from the fire marshal who is requesting a fire hydrant as part of the subdivision for this project. So please take a look at that and have that under consideration. That's a potential condition of approval if the commission deems appropriate.
Right, so we may be looking at installing a fire hydrant.
Yeah, plan on that? The plan where the fire hydrant's gonna go?
No, it was just a request by him, so we can discuss it and have it be a condition of approval. We probably do it in wording as compared to hiring someone to update the plans because we have a third party updating the plans at this point, but I think he was pretty descriptive in his item. Do we want to continue this to June 18th? Okay, it is still a public hearing though, so I still want to make sure we have the opportunity to open it up to the public.
If anyone's here from the public that'd like to discuss this application, that is the subdivision of 709, 733 Monroe Turnpike, this would be the time to raise your hands. Anyone online? Okay, seeing none, we'll continue this hearing as noted to the 18th. Next, we have SCP 2023-04A1, file 1652.707 Main Street. This is a new hearing. You have the
In accordance with CGS 8-7D, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, June 5th at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter via hybrid Zoom meeting and in-person attendees at Monroe Town Hall. SCP 2023-04A1, file 1652.707 Main Street, application for a permit approval amendment modification to change the use for a portion of building from office retail to place of worship. Girong Temple, Grace Lynn owner, J. Edwards Associates LLC representative. Notice was published in the Connecticut Post on May 22nd and on May 29th.
Okay, and for the exhibits, Kathleen.
I just passed out one additional exhibit to you that was submitted at the meeting, and staff will put that into the official record. Exhibit 1 is the application and plan set. Exhibit 2 is comments from the town of Monroe EMS dated 5/13/2025. Exhibit 3 is the planning and zoning administrator report by myself dated May 14th, 2025. Exhibit 4 is the revised set of plans by J. Edwards and Associates dated June 2nd, 2025. Exhibit 5 is comments from the Health Department, Town of Monroe, dated 6/4/2025. Exhibit 6 is Town of Monroe engineering comments by Town Engineer James DeMayo, dated 6/4/2025. Exhibit 7 is Fire Marshal comments by William David, dated 6/4/2023. Exhibit 8 is the revised planning and zoning administrator report by myself, dated June 4th, 2025. And then as mentioned, a narrative was entered tonight and that will be entered into the record. We have one more, Exhibit 9, which is the police department comments. And then we'll have this narrative that will be in as Exhibit 10.
Great, and for the applicant, please have.
Good evening. Jason Edwards, Connecticut Associates Engineers and Surveyors. Office is at 227 Stephanie Road, Easton. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, who is contract purchaser of this property. This is the former 707, the main restaurant that became the auction house for a few years. And then I was here in 2023, I think, representing the current owner, which was Girong Temple. They were and we had obtained an approval for a house of worship for the site at that time. It was a death in the family, I believe, of that and they weren't able to proceed with the conversion. They started it, but weren't able to really occupy. So they since marketed it, and now there's a new religious organization that's looking to purchase. So they're here with me tonight. You have any questions for them? But the plan is really essentially the same as what was there. No changes proposed to the building at this time. They're going to use the existing facility, existing parking lot. The only change we're showing is there's an existing dumpster pad here that was from 707 Main. Yeah, that's where we're looking. I think there's not a dumpster there now, but it was in use. There's no enclosure, so we're just proposing a fence per town standards around it to make it code. Everything else, the parking, we have ample parking. We signed 198 parking spaces. We did occupancy calculation based on the building code, we come up with an required parking of 152 spaces, so we're well under what would be required for that building. Have that breakdown on there. The septic system is also sized for a banquet hall and restaurant, so it's well oversized for this use. We supplied a traffic, well, this was what was approved in 2023. The one thing that was different in 2023, I should mention, I don't recall the complete discussion on this, but the SCP approval specifically stated that the square footage of the house of worship use was going to be only this room, and they had proposed commercial space for rent in these two front wings, and that's no longer proposed, so the entire building would be used for house of worship. Per the zoning regs. So that is a difference from what was approved in 2023. There is a traffic report that was prepared by KW page, professional engineering, traffic engineer. They had no change in the level of service from this use. Report, if there's questions on it, we can try to answer them. And there is a narrative that I provided just tonight. I'll run through that quickly and this is the name of the church. I'm going to butcher that name if I try to say it, so I'm going to not do it. But that's it. The church, they have 120 parishioners. It was started as a single family in 2003. Has grown since. They're based out of service hours are in here. They've got the office hours of the pastors 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tuesday to Friday. Sunday worships would be 11 a.m. and that's when they have about 100 parishioners in. Tuesday's prayer service, smaller service. Friday is also smaller, and Saturday is going to youth group. The church in English translation would be the Church of Jesus Christ Word. Yeah. And just an important note that there is no plans to use this as a banquet facility. It's strictly to be used for in-house cooking up for staff or whatever maybe they're using. It's not going to be a large event space. And the health department has some regulations that surround that too. I think that's another in their comment letter that they have to approve anything like that. That's kind of the extent of it. Be happy to take any questions for myself or the applicant.
All right, let's start on my right with questions for the applicant.
Oh, no questions. Sounds good.
No questions.
No questions.
A couple minor questions. I don't remember the property intimately, but is there a ramp for special needs and that kind of stuff?
I think there's just
Really in the front?
yeah, you come up here. That's an accessible space there. Here, it's all just
So this is obviously going to be a lot bigger than what was proposed in 23, meaning parishioners and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think when the other current owner, and when they stopped work, we were actually preparing an application to come back in because they weren't going to use it for leasing space, so they were actually going to make it used for, request to use the full space too, but yes, it will be bigger than what was approved.
And you said traffic study has little to no,
Well, yeah, I don't believe they said it.
100 people coming in on Sunday?
He said the existing,
The guy ever been on 25 before?
I think he has, but he's not on tonight.
You sure about that? All right. I mean, to me, it seems like there is gonna be some impact, obviously between those hours. It's not gonna be an all-day affair. I think there is gonna be some impact. So you're not, talking about changing entrances, exits, parking lot, everything's gonna stay the same?
I mean, there wouldn't be any more traffic than what was there for when it was a restaurant or banquet facility, I wouldn't think, you know. If they had a wedding in there, they had 100 plus people, and I'm sure.
Yeah, it was a good, it's a big, beautiful building.
Yeah.
But I understand with the rest of the days on Tuesdays and Fridays and Saturdays, those groups are a lot smaller. But that Sunday group was big, which is fine, which is great. I'm good.
Yeah, it's not a terrible time to have people coming in.
Yeah, there's no traffic on 21 then anyway.
Is that the maximum that they will,
No, that's how many they have currently.
maximum it could be?
There is, I mean, I don't know what the maximum of occupancy load of the building, I think we had like 600 or something computers, but that's what,
So the traffic study took that into consideration?
I believe so, yes.
I don't think it did that.
I'm not care that, so.
So they just, it says here they have 100, up to 120 parishioners, so that means
They only have 190.
Or the max.
the max that they currently have.
By fire code, the fire code is what I would refer to there, but the number of seats for the church is 194.
No, I was just questioning the traffic study. I think
The traffic study estimated to generate 115 vehicular trips during the Sunday peak hours. So that's vehicular trips. So you could have more than one person in each one of those cars because you have families coming in. So they definitely accommodated for more than
Then the 120.
120 people. They didn't use that as face value. They actually used the trips. And because they didn't actually have any information for what the Sunday traffic is, they actually took the information they had for a weekday, which would have been higher. So they even felt like their estimate was even actually more conservative than it will probably be in real life. Is how I read it.
I have no more questions.
All right,
So I'm going to clarify. It's 115 total trips. So they have 55 entry trips and 60 exit trips. But I would still say that's more than 120 people because I'm assuming you're having, when
Not
you're,
everybody's taking one,
yeah, you have
one person.
4 people in a car for a family.
Go ahead.
So I wasn't in agreement with the first approval. And if I remember correctly, there was a compromise using some of the building as other than, house of worship space, leaving, some commercial space left in there for town, which was, we're now proposing more loss of that commercial space. How many of these parishioners are local?
I'd have to defer. Several
live in town.
Several live in town, I guess.
And what is the current condition of the kitchen now?
I haven't. Yeah, if you want to talk.
If you could come up,
So your name.
state your name and address for the record.
My address.
Name and address for the record, thank you.
You didn't do your business address, just because it's
That's
associated.
fine.
Here?
No. Okay, just speak.
All right, I'll speak loud. I'm Jeanette Politano. I'm a commercial broker in town. I live in town for the last 26 years. I raised my daughter here. I live in Great Oak Farm. I work at Coldwell Banker Commercial. Okay, so I represent the property. They came to me to sell it. I had different types of uses. I won't go into that because the question was about the kitchen. So I'd be happy to answer any other questions you have about the building or what could be done there, et cetera. The kitchen is no more. That was taken out. I believe the property was foreclosed on when it was 707 on Main. And I think the bank took all that out. So right now there's no kitchen at all. And they're planning on putting in their own kitchen for their own purposes, their own use, correct?
If I remember correctly, there was, they had cemented over the drains and pretty much made it so it was unusable.
Unusable, completely, like you don't see piping or anything.
So the meal service events would basically be catered.
Correct, they'll be utilizing the restaurants in town, which would be nice for the restaurants to have something like that. What else can I tell you?
Right, but that's obviously just for catering. That space. What were your other thoughts that you don't want to get into as far as for the commercial space?
Yeah, so I wasn't a part of your approval process last time. I don't really understand, and I wish I was here because I could have expressed why having a building with a church use and commercial in one building is a problem. It's a problem for several reasons. Unless you pigeonhole what those other uses are, it's going to be a challenge. As a realtor, I can tell you it's going to be a challenge for any kind of business to go in there. I could have leased out the current, I think it's 3,000 square feet that was approved. But then the other uses that are come in like, oh, what's here, a church? That's not what I want. So they don't want to, have different uses in that space. So that's a problem. I don't know why this, I don't know if everyone was here during that, only approved a certain amount of square footage for the previous or the current owner. But they didn't even realize that was the case, and that's not your fault. It's just, their understanding. So I marketed it as a restaurant or a church, expecting the current use was allowed, and a restaurant because it was 707 Main Street. Restaurants had come to me. There's a lot of challenges with the property. There's no light. They would have to do something about that if people are coming and going. They would also expect a lot more traffic. A church that has a couple of days a week and really just Sunday afternoon, morning to early afternoon, of the most amount of people is nothing like you would get with 707 on Main was. Every night that was busy. I remember, I used to go. It was a great place. And I would love to see something like that there, but we have a need for this building that's been empty for over a year and a half to be occupied by people that are already in town. They love the town. They're going to utilize the different services in town. And I think they'd be a great asset to the community because of that. They have kids in the school system, and they can speak of that if you have questions already. And they wanted to come here and make this their new home.
Thank you. That's all I have.
No questions.
Still confused about the kitchen.
Are there any members of the public here that would like to comment on
Can
it?
I go through, can I just review what each of the town staff had to say about the project, our comments?
Right.
Which is mostly no comment. So the police had no comments. I had several comments that the applicant has addressed. They have confirmed they're doing no exterior improvements. There is a dumpster facility in the rear, which they're willing to enclose as part of the project. That would be the only site disturbance that would occur. I had a couple issues on the way the parking calculation was originally calculated, of which they have updated and revised and do meet our zoning regulations. I had requested a narrative, which they had submitted tonight. Clarifications on just what was different, which has already been gone through, that the commercial is being taken out and replaced with worship, and that the kitchen, they are saying, will be usable for their staff, but they're not claiming will be part of events. However, I think you can assume that if they do have weddings or funerals, things like that, I'd asked if they were going to do any large scale events. They said not independent of what would be associated with the church, which could be weddings and funerals or things of that nature. Although I believe they're going to be catered if you do have a full kitchen in there. They're going to use it in some sort of capacity, but not probably for the main bulk of the cooking. The fire marshal had just said verification of kitchen use as application states weddings and with a commercial kitchen in place can change. An inspection and testing for fire sprinkler system by a certified fire sprinkler contractor, an inspection and testing of the fire alarm system, and fire extinguisher placement and certification. So just making sure everything is up to code. The town engineer had no additional comments. The health department has stated that the site is served by public water. The septic system was installed in 2000, and calculations provided indicate that the change in use will not exceed the capacity of the existing septic system. So they do believe the septic system is intact and appropriate. And the use of the kitchen may require town of Monroe food establishment license. But once they know exactly what they're doing as part of a building permit, that would be reviewed. And that is the end. So town, at this point, we have no outstanding comments related to the application.
Okay, I think we have commissioner questions.
I just have one, John. Just because I'm not clear, I don't know about everybody else, but I am not clear. the kitchen, you said you're using.
I think that
When we mean using it, do we mean we're bringing catered stuff into the kitchen and we're serving out of the kitchen, or are we bringing in a stove, a microwave, a sink? I understand Commissioner Westland said it perfectly where it said everything was covered up, but I also heard we're using the kitchen. What do you mean? Like, what is the specific meaning of using? Are we using it that we're putting new stuff back in? Or are we using it so that we just have tables and we can serve out of it?
I'll just come down and please state your name and address for the record.
I'm soft spoken, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
The layout, 168 Albright Avenue, Stratford. The kitchen, like Jeanette had mentioned, we would be catering, we would be purchasing from local restaurants.
But you're not bringing in, you're not going to purchase a stove. You're not going to purchase a mic. You're not doing any of that stuff. You're just using the space to serve food. Beautiful. Thank you.
Chairman, I have-
Questions up here? Go ahead.
I have a question to Kathleen. From the point of view of the town, do we have any objections for having cooking facilities in there?
What do you mean cooking? Like, as in what they're proposing?
Yeah,
I mean, they're not really proposing cooking facilities. They just said they're really just using it as a place
There's nothing in there.
to serve
It's
food
an
out.
open.
and open to.
Yeah, Rob asked the question. They said they covered over all the drains. They covered over.
Because as
That's why I just asked.
As part of the last special exception permit, one of the conditions of that approval was that they were not going to use the kitchen at all in any way, shape, or form. So when it came back, that was the big question of what are you actually using that space for? And then Commissioner Westland said, how far did you basically get into decommissioning it? And it sounds like they got pretty far into decommissioning it, but I'm assuming they'll put up tables and things of that nature and countertops and whatnot. So they at least have a place to serve stuff out of. But it sounds like you're not going to put in appliances or anything like that. And we can make that a condition of the approval if the commission thinks that's appropriate, just to make sure that that's clarified.
Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
it's still putting like a microwave if they want, right? That doesn't.
Yeah, that does it. For us, it's more of like to designate what a kitchen is. It's more of like a
Sink, the stove.
sink, stove, or an active hookup. So, because there's always the chance that they do maybe some sort of minor renovations, they get a building permit, and then afterwards they go in and they hook up a stove. So if there's an active hookup, we still consider that. So again, maybe we put it a condition of approval that it only be used in these ways and that all potential hookups are properly deactivated.
It's a great idea.
Any other commissioner questions? Then we'll go to the public. If there's anyone here from the public that would like to speak either in favor or against, or any general comments to the commission, this would be the time to do that, either online or in person. Please raise your hand if you'd like to do that. Anyone online? There's a button to raise your hand. Okay, seeing none, we'll go back to the applicant.
for the questions on the paper, so.
So what do you want to close the hearing? Hearing is hereby closed. We're moving on now to the final public hearing of the night, SUB 2025-03, file 1282 Victoria Drive. It's the new application.
In accordance with CGS 8-7D, a public hearing will be held on Thursday, June 5th at 7 PM or soon thereafter via hybrid Zoom meeting and in-person attendees located at Monroe Town Hall. SUB 2025-03, file 12802 Victoria Drive, application for a two-lot re-subdivision of Lot 2 at 2 Victoria Drive, creating parcel A consisting of 2.664 acres and parcel B consisting of 8.267 acres. Centro LLC, CO Paul Stone, owner, J. Edwards and Associates LLC, representative. Notice was published in the Connecticut Post on May 22nd and May 29th.
Kathleen, you want to read a list of exhibits?
Exhibit 1 is the application and plan set. Exhibit 2 is the Health Department comments, document dated May 13th, 2025. Exhibit 3 is EMS comments dated 5/13/25. Exhibit 4 is the Planning and Zoning Administrator Report by myself dated May 14th, 2025. Exhibit 5 is the Violation Status Report by our Zoning Enforcement Officer dated May 20th, 2025. Exhibit 6 is a revised application and plans by J. Edwards and Associates. Exhibit 7 is the Town of Monroe Engineering Comments dated June 4th, 2025. Exhibit 8 is the Fire Marshal Comments dated 6/4/2025. And exhibit, there's no number on here, so what's next? 9 is the Police Department comments dated June 5th, 2025. And that completes the exhibits.
Okay, for the applicant, we have, go ahead.
Good evening, Brian McCann of Zabel Schellenberg for the applicant Central LLC. With me, I have Jason Edwards from J. Edwards and Associates. This application proposes to re-subdivide 13.6 acres of land bordering on Main Street, about 25 and Victoria Drive. It's that corner that you see there, the blue flag, as well as a corner which is labeled future retail on a blue dot.
Can you zoom in on that, Annie, so we could actually see it?
That driveway, Jason,
By the way.
driveway, it's on the property through easement, but the property goes all the way through. So we're proposing to subdivide it essentially along that driveway, just past
And the
it.
property bounds are delineated by that yellow.
That's just, we have more detail.
We have a site plan or a survey as well. There are currently no improvements on the subject property, other than, I believe, an existing curb cut at the bottom of the hill. The property slopes away from Route 25. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, down Victoria Drive into the end of the property. The stream is at the bottom of the hill. And there's also a bicycle trail, which Jason has labeled as rail trail there on the edge of the property. Parcel A is called out on the site plan. That's the proposed parcel on Main Street, roughly where the future retail flag was on the property. That's proposed at 2.6 acres. Parcel B, which is on Victoria Drive, which is the blue flag, is approximately 10.9 acres. Property is entirely within the B2 zoning district. And both proposed lots meet the dimensional requirements of the B2 zoning district. The applicant has an application pending with the Inland Wetlands Commission for a 10,000 square foot daycare facility that's on the Victoria Drive. I'm calling the Victoria Drive parcel B on the bottom of the hill. I can go through the comments. Engineering had said that highway modification permit will be required before from DPW before any right-of-way disturbances. No comments from fire marshal. No comments from police chief. Zoning violation review revealed no zoning violations on the site. Although it indicated that there was a prior inland wetland violation. I believe this was from the prior owner, and that was remediated through a 2013 remediation plan, which has been fully implemented. And the staff has confirmed that. EMS had no concerns. Health department had reminded us once the subdivision is approved that a formal septic plan review will be required. The planning and zoning administrator review and had requested conceptual site plans for the future retail spot, which I believe were later provided. And in the record, reminded us that a referral should be made to Inland Wetlands Commission, which I believe is underway. And also that the applicant should demonstrate an open space allocation, which I'd like to discuss in a little bit of detail. There's no, this is not within a public water supply watershed. A portion of the re-subdivision is within the 100-year floodplain. We have that shown on the site survey. Public water supply is available. And there was by way of background, there was an approval for a prior daycare facility from the Inland Wetland Commission in 2004, but was not built, and the permit term has expired. As a condition of that approval, the applicant was required to dedicate an easement for that previously mentioned bike trail. The easement's been recorded. I have a copy of that easement. I could submit it to Kathleen because she was asking me about it a couple of days ago. Specifically, she was inquiring about the obligation to maintain. I checked that the obligation to maintain is on the town, which might have been done by design because it's a large path, it's a large trail, and I'm sure they have some grand plan for maintaining the entire trail consistently rather than have individual blocks of maintenance. And finally, the inland wetlands and water courses were identified and delineated by Bill Kenny and Associates on June 2024, and they were re-inspected, and a report was prepared in March 2025. Which brings me back to the open space allocation. The applicant is requesting that some consideration be made for the existing bike trail. We have a couple options shown on the site plan, one of which shows the eastern portion of that bicycle trail, as well as the bicycle trail itself, as an open space dedication. Obviously provides considerable amount of opportunities for public recreation. It's actively being used. And I think what's important here, as far as the sort of, at least in my mind, the equity of counting that or making that a dedication, is the fact that the 2004 approval did not go through. It was not built. So the dedication was made, and there was effectively no benefit as a result of the permission grants in the application. So the applicant is requesting that some consideration be made for that bicycle trail in terms of an open space dedication. And Jason, can you show the plan that actually shows that?
This is the one with expanded trail easement. One thought we had was to.
Well, first let's show them where it is. Directly adjacent, you see, oh, perfect. That wetland, I think you should be able to see the delineation of that wetland.
This trail here is kind of hard to see. There. And there's a hatch very light blue, not too much. Well, I'll change that next time. What the thought was there's a little bit of uplands here and here, and right now the trail does not extend. The easement doesn't extend all the way to the end of the river. So the thought was to expand that and get you so the town would have rights to the river and have the trail, and then it would also create an area here. I would we find a separate permit, but you could maybe do like a parking area there maybe or something. It's right against the road. There's a flat plane. It's in the floodplain, so you really can't build a structure there, but it could potentially be used as an access point. But again, that would be a separate permit, not something we're applying for, but it's a potential future use. Now, I broke this down. I got a little creative with the interpretation, but the requirement in town for open space is 15% So we took that and looked at what the usable acreage is of the land, and then took 15% of that and looked at what the ratios were based on the existing bike trail and then our trail easement and then what we're gonna add to it. So based on the total acreage, we've got 10.92. Net out these items here, we're down to 4.79 acres. So 15% of that would be 31,000 square feet of the usable land. So existing trail is about 19,000 square feet. We're proposing on this scheme to add 21,591 to that, and that would get you to a total of 40,000 square feet or 0.935 acres, which does exceed the 15% if you do the calculations. But that's something we think would be beneficial to the town to have the expanded easement. This trail, while it is, I guess, legally the town's responsibility to maintain, I know that the current owner is doing the maintenance there. It's well maintained. They've got mowed, landscaping is maintained around it. It's very, very nice there. They've been putting the effort in to keep it clear for sure. The other option that we were considering in the office anyway, let's go to the next slide. Would be to just create this entire, everything on the far side of the trail would be open space. Now, that is mostly wetlands. It's really all just wetlands, except for these couple of upland areas that we encompassed with the easement in the previous version. So you'd have your trail easement, and then beyond that would be open space to the town. If that's something the town would prefer, just trying to give some idea of feedback on which way or no open space. If you are okay with that, take just the trail easement could act as our open space. You have the rights to it there now. It was granted at the time that was granted. There was no open space requirement, so they gave that to the town. And there was also a grant of a parcel of land in the back, in the initial subdivision of 2.5 acres that was given to the town. It extended the open space of Country Lane subdivision, which is backs up to the Amazon facility. So there was a consideration made, but it was not done under current regulations. So trying to kind of adapt to the current regulation.
Just briefly go over the delineation between the two proposed parcels.
So just to go through the subdivision itself, we've got parcels, I think A and B, we both them. So this is, I don't know if you guys have this conceptual plan, but you'll have
Yes, some.
Yeah, it's in the last page of, yeah.
So right now, we were showing a convenience store, a gas station out here. That's just one feasible option that we looked at. We don't know for sure what's going to happen there. Daycare, as Brian here mentioned, that's under permit or under application for wetlands. Bring that in a separate special exception permit before you guys soon. So, but we wanted to get the subdivision portion of it. We needed a wetland referral, so we wanted to make sure that was done at the same time. So that's why we're kind of ahead of it now. So we are proposing this structure in the back, the daycare, but not part of this application. We'll be back with a separate one. So right now, really all we're proposing is to divide this property. The division line has just passed that roadway that goes through, driveway that goes through. The septic area for this daycare is over here, so that's pumped around to this side. There is a septic area we identified for this building. There's an area out in front, and also they could potentially put an area down here, depending on what that gets developed as. We determine as we go forward with. Yeah, I think that's basics of it. So really, it's just the subdivision now. This is what is coming down the pipe.
All right, great. So let's go to the commissioners for questions. Starting on my right.
Sure. So no matter what, the rail trail will have some sort of open space allotment, so it'll remain there.
Yeah, it's already there. It's not,
Won't be disturbed. And
change it. We're trying to expand to it, if anything, but it's already there.
I think we understand that the town's actually seeking to further the.
The trail's been approved to go on all the way up to yellow, so they're starting construction on that soon.
well, I like the option where there's that possible little parking lot area
No,
Actually, both options would, no, they wouldn't, only this one would have that, yeah.
yeah,
So,
that might work. But thank you. That's all.
Okay, so let me be clear, at this time, you're seeking strictly a subdivision
that's correct. Yes.
into A and B.
Yes.
And on A, you're putting what, a gas station?
No, A, we're putting nothing, we're just showing you a feasible
And B, you're gonna put a
daycare.
daycare.
Yes.
They do have current plans, but that's pending within the wetlands now. It's a daycare facility, which will be coming to you with shortly.
Next week, we're going to submit it.
There's no firm plan for parcel A on Route 25. That's a conceptual drawing. Once we have a suitor for that.
We asked them to prove out both lots that they're both buildable so that you guys have an idea of the fact that they're not asking it for a non-buildable lot. They're asking to.
Both buildings.
Yeah, so it's conceptual. So it's typical that we ask them to do conceptual plans for at least both.
So the building that you are thinking or concept of it is in the upland or is in the, are you in the wetland right now?
There is a small pocket of wetland on parcel A. Did I get that right, Jason?
Yeah, no.
Yeah, parcel A. Parcel A is the Main Street, the front parcel. There is a small pocket of wetland. You could see the delineation there on the northern property boundary. But the building that's shown on the conceptual drawing is entirely outside of that inland wetland. It may be within the upland review area.
There were no wetlands impact proposed on either side.
You're in front of inlet wetland right now,
For the daycare, yes.
So the daycare.
daycare.
Yeah.
And they're still,
They closed the hearing, so they're expecting a vote now. So I think the next meeting, probably going to.
I always expect to vote at the next meeting, yeah, which is Wednesday.
and for sure that the bike trail will stay or will get enhanced.
That's correct, yes.
I didn't hear
It
that.
will either stay the way it is or add to it.
The bike trail is going to stay the way it is, or be improved, one or the other. It will not be eliminated. It's currently under an easement that's recorded on the land records. The grantee is the town of Monroe. And so the applicant property owners would not have the ability to move that easement, or move that bike trail.
And what do you conceive that daycare square footage wise to be?
It's about 10,000 square feet,
One story, two story?
single,
Okay, thank you.
in a parking lot.
Just to be clear, that's not this application, so we're only.
Right.
We're only applying the subdivision.
So back to this application, I guess. So realistically, the open space requirement, if we ignore the easement from the bike trail, what's the requirement? And then what are you actually asking if Plan 2 were to go? So how much open space are we not requesting from you if we approve that we would have usually?
Can I actually interject here for one moment? So just to review for the commission, I'm going to read the area of open space reservation from
Thank you.
the code. All subdivisions and re-subdivisions, so just for clarification, this is a re-subdivision because it used to be 10 Victoria, got subdivided into 10 and 2 Victoria. Now they're asking for a re-subdivision, which is why we're here for a public hearing tonight. All subdivision and re-subdivision applications shall include a dedication of open space equal to or greater than 50% of the total combined acreage of the subdivision property. So I read that to be, it's not 15%.
1.5.
Yeah, 15,
Okay,
sorry.
yeah.
I think it's a little hot up here. It is a little hot. I feel like my mouth's getting a little dry. 15% of the total combined acreage of the subdivision property. So that means both lots. So I read that to be, it's 15% not of the usable space. It's 50% of the total lot. At least 50% of this open space shall be preserved as usable open space containing no wetlands, as defined by the town of Monroe inland wetland watercourse regulations, or excessive slopes greater than 20%. The commission may partially waive this requirement and permit the required open space area to include additional areas of wetlands and or excessive slopes where the total area of the property to be developed contains more than 25% of such areas, which I believe this property does. So because they have more than 25% of wetlands and/or excessive slopes, the commission may waive this requirement. In all cases, the proportion of wetlands and/or excessive slopes that is included within the open space shall not exceed the proportion that exists within the total area to be developed. So I read that as you have to have 15% open space. Typically 50% of that has to be usable space. However, due to the fact that so much of this site is wetlands, you don't have to adhere to that 50%. You can increase the wetlands and excessive slopes beyond that, as long as the proportions of wetlands that's included within the open space shall not exceed the proportion that exists within the total area. So I don't believe there's much wiggle room for the 15% total, but there is of what that 15% includes.
So plan 2 that you showed would be the 15%, or is that a little less?
It would be excess of 15%.
It would be,
It would
okay.
be more, yes. And then it's all wetlands.
And then though, there is the wiggle room though with the fee in lieu of, right? They do have
That's
that.
another option too. There's a fee in lieu of, or you could, they could dedicate land on another property. This commission allows for both of those. We did talk, Attorney McCann and I did talk about what that includes of an appraisal and things of that nature. And that's, this commission has to approve that appraiser through that process. So my understanding was they wanted to put a couple options in front of you tonight to get feedback before they, started that process of getting an appraiser or drafting the legal instruments for the open space dedication.
So if we were to say option 2 meets the open space requirement, option 1, it's obviously not giving over the open space, would you be inclined to do the fee in lieu of with regards to that? Would that be an option, or is that just something you guys aren't interested in?
The only thing that I'd like to stress or request is that, so that trail easement is just under 20,000 square feet. That's upland.
Mhm.
That's not wetland. That trail easement was not as a result of a subdivision or a re-subdivision. It was a condition of approval from a prior wetland approval that was not used, for lack of a better term. So the applicant would just ask if somehow, and it could be creative, if somehow that can be taken into consideration, because they're so limited as far as the upland usable areas on here. 20,000 has gone away. It's granted to the residents of Monroe. It's excellent recreational space. And we would just ask that it be taken into.
So,
And I can confirm that I talked to Public Works today that yes, the maintenance of that, although I do realize the owners have been probably doing some of it just to keep it clean because it's their site or they're adjacent to their site. It is the maintenance of the town. So dedicating that as open space to the town, I don't see any potential obstacles just at first flush, but I have not talked to other staff, employees in other departments to see if there's any other implications that I'm just not thinking through.
so potentially option 1, if we were to not do the open space, but do a fee in lieu of, you would be okay if the calculation was made including the easement towards the open space to maybe lower what the fee in lieu of is?
Yes.
Okay. My other question, if you zoom out a little, maybe, I recall the property across Victoria Drive when it came in front of us. There was some requests for potential driveway access to Victoria Drive, and I want to say at the time they were told that they could not get access to Victoria Drive. Have you spoken to them regarding that for this daycare? Because at the moment, this property has access to Main Street, but we're about to cut off access to Main Street. Will they, yeah, I know it gets weird because then are we creating a lot that will not be able to come out to Victoria Drive?
Sorry, which lot can't access Victoria?
I believe across Victoria Drive, there was I want to say a grocery store came in front of us a while back.
Right, Main Street.
And we wanted, during that, we had asked, to you have that lovely light right there. If people could go out of the parking lot of the grocery store to Victoria Drive. And at the time, we were told that the owners, I believe Swiss Army of Victoria Drive, were not going to, or Amazon, whoever owns it, was not going to allow that access.
I
So,
think it's, there's an easement over that as a private road. This lot has rights over that. These two lots do. The single lot does, and they would continue to once they're split into two. So both do have access.
I would, yeah, my only request would be for your project that's coming forward, let's make sure, because is there, I believe there's no way to get out to the road behind it, right?
No, there's not.
So just make sure.
I don't think it's unreasonable to ask them to put something in writing to add into the record that they have done the research and to back up.
Yeah,
Hate to subdivide and then your daycare is a daycare that no one can get to.
No, these properties were part of that property. So they have the same rights to the private road that everyone, that Victorinox, that Amazon does, Olay Soccer does.
Okay.
I
would just make sure, because again, I mean, and again, maybe at that hearing that was told to us and that wasn't, I don't know. I would just make sure that's all copacetic because.
That's the reason why this is a re-subdivision.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why this is a re-subdivision.
That's good.
All right, because if not, I mean, they could, if they say no, then we're talking about a driveway access through your now new subdivided property to get out to Main Street. Which changes the design a lot and makes a daycare pulling out onto a busy part of Main Street not great without the light. So that's going to be a problem going forward. Yeah.
We can provide.
Besides that, thank you. Sometimes I
Those are my questions, man. That's just not cool.
All right, Commissioner Ambrosi.
I want to go before. So part of this building's in the floodplain?
We're not proposing a building now, but not a good part of this application, but the building that is proposed for wetlands right now, yes, it is in the floodplain, but it meets all, it's designed to meet FEMA flood standards and town engineering review.
So these are just plans,
These are just conceptual plans. We were asked.
full plans?
Yeah, I mean, the one there is what you're gonna see in about a week, we're gonna be submitting that, so you'll be before you, June or July. Same
Why
plan.
don't we do all at one time?
We were waiting on something. From the contract. We needed a lighting plan, honestly, and that's still in wetlands, so we couldn't finish up till we had that. We didn't want to submit the site plan even without the lighting plan, so we're moving ahead with subdivision because it was.
I don't mean to be a pain, man, but you asked for this.
What?
Every time they come for us to redesign something, you've asked for a conceptual plan. Now you're telling them you gotta do it all at once?
No, I'm saying that some of these conceptual plans we got didn't turn out to be what they're supposed to be.
No, he wants the actual plan, which you can't get.
But how are they gonna give you an actual plan when you?
If we don't subdivide it, then their plan is
What
nothing.
are we asking for here?
It's always putting, I get it, but it's just kind of how.
Go through this every time.
Can't find a buyer when you don't have a lot.
I mean, we go, yeah, that's not a your thing. It's,
I'll come back before you with anything you want to build.
I hear you. I hear you.
It's okay.
Are we always?
Go ahead, you have the floor. Any other questions?
So how far, so, Bill, so you don't have a problem putting the building in the floodplain?
No, I mean, it's all designed to FEMA standards and,
Okay.
that's all kind of, reviewed our plans.
Well, that's all conceptual.
It's all conceptual, but not part of this application.
We'll handle it all.
So the other building's not, that's,
All right, Commissioner Ioannini, now go ahead.
I love following Leon. It's one of the highlights of my life. Piggybacking on Commissioner Condon, he's 100% correct. I guess originally at one time you guys had spoken, or Mr. Carp had spoken about putting a storage and then a couple of fast food restaurants in the front. And our concern at that time was it was just one way in, one way out. And we had discussed about Victoria Drive, and they had said they had contacted whoever was part of Victoria, and they not that they denied them access, but they said they were giving them a little bit of a hard time on callbacks and all that kind of stuff. And then I guess the project had died per se, gone to something else. But yes, that's ideal. Especially that part of 25 is crazy busy. So that's Ryan, great question, buddy. I like it, man. I think we're finally making some movement here that has been needed for a long time. I'm actually good with however you guys, or however the commission decides to do the open space. And thank you for, working with the rails and all that kind of stuff and keeping it clean. That's extremely important to this town. So, outstanding. Well done. No questions, just comments today.
Well, I wish the conceptual example that was used wasn't a gas station.
You don't need another one?
I don't mind, I don't mind getting creative with the open space allocations, however we have to do that. Again, preserving the area that's already preserved is good. And, the approval of this application benefits the town of Monroe, and we can make the land more usable. I'm all for it.
Yeah, no questions for me either. I support the subdivision.
In this town.
I support both, either way that they decide. Looks good.
We'll work with Kathleen on.
Any other staff? Any other staff comments before we go to the public?
My biggest comments was just to provide the conceptual plan, which they did. I haven't had a chance to do a full review, but based on my initial review I agree that something can be developed there, which is really all we're doing. It's just showing that it could be a buildable lot. We cannot vote on this until we get a subdivision referral from the Inland Wetland Commission. They are currently having that under review, so we do expect that. As well as comments from the Conservation Water Resource Commission, who will be meeting at the beginning of this month, and we expect their comments from there. I don't believe the town engineer, as Attorney McCann went through, had any comments except for the comment about the highway work permit. There is a memo from the health department just kind of outlining a couple items, but nothing that impedes the approval of this application. And I don't believe there were any significant comments from police, EMS, or fire. So yes, the biggest thing is just working through the open space requirement. And I don't know if there's we can look at maybe doing like a combination between the two plans, taking the bike path and then also maybe doing some of the wetlands. And it sounds like they're willing to have the remainder of that open space 15% be wetlands or something of the sort, of which case we just need to make sure that there's access from Victoria Drive.
They must have rights now over it because they have access to it, trail easement, so.
Yeah, technically, we have to have access to it from a public highway.
Did not abut the state open space? Or am I?
But the state open space doesn't count, it's not Monroe.
Does the state open space have access to a public highway?
No.
But it doesn't matter, we still
Doesn't
can't
matter.
utilize, it has to be either access from another town of Monroe open space parcel. And people have tried to do that before where they try to use the state or.
They bought against one in the back.
Yeah, let's take a look at that, but yes.
The easement does
They're gonna be via easement.
lead to
The Victoria.
Yeah, let's take a look at it. It technically had to have access to a public highway. You just,
Strip out to the front, we'd have to.
yeah, we'll take a look at it. But yeah, I think we can get there. So that would be the biggest thing. And if you guys wanna, we still have to hear public's comments from the public, and the chairman's comments. But think about if you would like to, be continued to June 18th or to July 17th.
I think June 18th would be for.
All right, let's go to the public then. Are there any members of the public here tonight that would like to comment on this application, either for, against, or neutral? Please raise your hand. If there are any members of the public online that would like to comment on this application, please raise your hands. I see no one online and I see no one in person. Okay, then let's get back to the applicant. We'd like to continue this hearing, I imagine?
Yes.
Okay, then we'll continue this hearing.
To June 18th. Is that
Good,
the preference?
June 18th?
Okay, just because of the lead time for
Absolutely.
an appraisal, which we don't know if we're gonna need yet.
Or would you rather July?
Is there no, I mean, we'd rather
No.
pay $5,000 for the
It
appraisal.
sounds like we'll be able to get to something with a land dedication as
Okay.
long as that's
That's what I was looking at.
your preference, as long as that's the preference.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, great, we'll
Thank
continue
you.
this hearing. Thank you, and now time for deliberation. We will deliberate on 707 Main Street. So we have the 5 seated members of the commission that will deliberate on this. Unfortunately, no, either. So what do you think?
I would move for an approval,
And the conditions of approval?
just to make sure there's no kitchen hookup.
So my wording suggestion would be, the condition of approval would include, the kitchen will be utilized for serving food only, will not include the installation of any appliances, including the presence of a range or oven or utility connection suitable for servicing a range or oven. However, this does not exclude a sink, which in my opinion, I don't think they should exclude a sink. I think it would be, sanitary reasons, you want to wash your hands, things like that. So this is only, and that's kind of how we really define a kitchen, is the range or the oven. So that's what this is prohibiting.
Leon, any thoughts? You okay with this? If we go ahead with an approval, draft an approval, yes? Or no, yes?
I like the idea of leaving those sections. I don't want to, stall the project, but I also don't want to lose the commercial space.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to do with it?
So you're okay? What's your?
Well, you weren't okay last time, as
Right.
you had mentioned, and the concern's the tax money. And I feel like jumping back a few years to a conversation we had back then, but, I look at it as a church brings more than something different than tax dollars to town. It brings community. I can't help but think, we have our Strawberry Festival coming up, that's run by a church. The Apple Festival, run by a church. Italian Festival, that's kind of the makeup of Monroe in a sense.
They didn't come from commercial properties initially.
Well, it depends on how long. Some of them, no. Very, very old, but, you never know. I don't know if St. Jude's at one point was a commercial property.
The point is well taken.
Yeah.
I don't want to lose.
And I think, hearing from the realtor was actually really kind of enlightening to know, it's very hard to market commercial property on a church property. I know we've seen some other potential discussions with stuff like that in the past. And I get it, it's hard. What businesses want to be next to a church? What churches want to be next to business or specific?
Being a realtor, it's hard to explain, but I feel like we're up here advocating for Monroe and not for a realtor.
Yeah, no, but it's the point being, if we were to keep that, are we just going to be guaranteeing 2 empty commercial properties? Yes, we still get some tax money off of that, but, is that appealing to the church that's going to come in? We kind of held the last church to that standard and it never came in. They did mention it's because of a death and stuff, but still,
So you think it didn't come in because of those commercial spaces?
I don't know. It might not have helped.
I don't think they occupied it at all at any point.
No, never.
Yeah.
Just change the sign, I believe.
Wow. So but for me, it would be, that's what they're asking for and I'd be willing to give over the commercial space. Realistically, I think that building is either 100% commercial or not commercial. We saw it when it was 100% commercial. I don't know.
Nothing really lasted.
Well, there's only one thing in there.
Yeah, well, the restaurant and then the auction house.
The auction.
So there were 2 things for a while. I remember the restaurant.
It's not that old, right? 10 years old.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a church taking over the property. I think it's actually great for traffic. Obviously not on a Sunday, but if the majority of the time when traffic's bad on 25, if the businesses, that timing is going to be at rush hour.
Yeah.
They're not going to hit traffic now, so
It's not going to be a traffic.
it's going to be a lot better than what could potentially come in there for those businesses. So, it's a balance. It is. And, I definitely know where you come from, Rob, when you bring up giving up the commercial real estate and stuff, but I think, that's why I'd be in favor.
All right, sounds like we have a consensus for an approval. So if you want to draft an approval with the,
I'm comfortable with the wording of the conditions of approval. I know we don't have a lot of meetings over the next couple months. If this is just something we want to approve tonight, I'm okay.
You can vote on it.
With you guys voting for an approval, with a condition of the approval being that the kitchen will be utilized for serving food only and will not include the installation of any appliances, including the presence of a range or oven or utility connection suitable for servicing a range or oven.
all right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Here.
I'll make a motion to approve SEP 2023 04A1, file 1652, 707 Main Street with the conditions of approval.
Motion by Condon, second by Mayini. We'll call the roll, starting on my right.
Condon, yes.
Ambrosi, yes.
Riley, yes.
Mayini, yes. Westland, no.
Okay, motion passes. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, moving on, we have some new applications, which we're all pretty much aware of the first few. Kathleen, do you want to go through those for us?
Yes,
Or
so
town application?
these are noticed for the July 17th, 25 meeting because it had to be for a regularly scheduled meeting. We did try to get them on for this meeting. Unfortunately, we needed a full 30 days in front of MetroCog, and we had our subcommittee meeting on the 5th of May. So I wasn't able to get that to them in time. So unfortunately, that means it's going in July. There's 4 text changes that subcommittee has reviewed, updating the boats and RV regulations to review the setbacks from 100 feet to 25 feet, with the additional conversations about not having them in the front yards. Illuminated signs is in order for us to start doing some heavy enforcement of illuminated signs, specifically in windows, by allowing open signs to remain, because right now, the way our zoning regulations are written, we would have to prohibit those, and we don't want to do those because we feel like those are very communicative and important to the town. Regulating metal storage containers, which we've been receiving a lot of complaints for lately. So this is in order to rectify what the town of Monroe would like to see aesthetically for those items. And a couple exemptions for a ZCC. Right now, technically, if you have a tree house or a playhouse or a playground or things like that, you need to come in and go through a full application. So this is in hopes of being able to reduce some of those. They still have to comply with setbacks. But if you're just building a tree house, you don't have to come in for zoning approval. So all 4 of those will be in front of the Planning and Zoning Commission, July 17th.
Great. We have meeting minutes from May the 15th. You all have a copy in front of you. If you've looked them over. Carol, can a motion to approve?
Motion to approve meeting minutes, May 15th, as drafted.
Motion by Mayini, second by Westland. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm abstaining. I wasn't there.
Stood up for it.
All right, then it's unanimous. No, it's not. We have to go for a roll call then. Starting on my right.
Ambrosi, yes.
O'Reilly, yes?
Mayini, yes.
Westland, yes.
Okay, minutes are approved. That's unanimous for voice. For voice vote. Zoning planning matters, division regulation.
This is a continuation from our conversation at the last meeting. In your packets, you have a series of 11 by 17s with 8.5 by 11 at the front. We had talked about subdivision regulations, section 111-304C, which talks about lot quality. It says that I'm starting at I'll read the whole thing. The lots shall be of such character, we're talking about subdivision lots. The lots shall be of such character that they can be used for building purposes without danger to the health and safety of the public or the occupants. Any lot which is found to be unsuitable for buildings by reasons of water or flooding conditions, unsuitable soil, topography, ledge, rock, or other conditions shall be combined with another lot that is suitable or shall be marked not a building lot on the final map until necessary improvements to the lot have been made and approved by the commission. When I read this regulation, I take it as you can mark a lot as not a building lot as long as it is found to be unsuitable for buildings by reasons of water or flooding, unsuitable soils, topography, ledge, rock, or other conditions. What we are being told, what staff is being told by an applicant who's coming in for a subdivision, and they're using a surveyor who has done a ton of work in town for many, many, many years, is that past staff and past planning and zoning commissions have allowed people to apply the not a building lot for any reason, just because of request by the applicant. We had talked about this at the last meeting, and the commission said, can they provide examples of when that was used? So the examples they provided me, unfortunately, is from the 80s and 90s. We don't have anything that's more in the recent time period, but you can see several examples, and I've highlighted in yellow all the times that it was used for not a building lot. My understanding is several of these then got developed later, once they came in and they were able to prove that you could build the property with a proposed building that did not cause harm to the public safety and health. The potential application that will be put in front of you, the lot is very large and most likely can be built upon. So the truth be told, they don't want to spend the money going through the test holes and things of that nature and hiring someone to do conceptual plans like we saw tonight, which we do make them do for both of the lots to make sure that they can be built. And so they would like to voluntarily say not a building lot. And then later they do have plans to develop it, but they will do it at that time when they're willing to invest the money into proving that out. So the question before this commission is, can we allow somebody to voluntarily put not a building lot on a secondary subdivided lot? And will this commission accept that? Or do they have to prove out that they are putting not a building lot because the lot is found to be unsuitable and they have to state the specific reason: water or flooding, unsuitable soils, topography, ledge, rock, or other conditions, and prove out that there is a condition on site that makes it not a building lot at this time.
So if we deem one lot unsuitable to build, does the town have the right to tax it?
It will be taxed as not a building lot. It's
Raw land.
It's raw land. And yes, I do believe that the assessor takes, if you have a buildable lot compared to not a buildable lot, into consideration, in the same way that the assessor takes into consideration if there's an active permit. So like once this commission approves a lot for a permit to be developed, that increases the value of the lot according to the assessor's calculation. Just because it hasn't been built upon yet doesn't matter. It's still, because you have a permit, it does increase the value of it. So yes, I haven't asked him that specific question, but I would imagine that if it says not a building lot, or if it shows it as a building lot, that would be taxed differently from a value perspective.
So does this designation run in perpetuity, or can somebody change it
Until it
back?
changes it, yeah.
They could change it back.
They can change
They
it
can
back.
change it back. They come in, and that's what they're saying. They're saying that in the past, they've been able to voluntarily put it on there, and then they come in later, they take it off, they prove to the commission it can be a buildable lot, and then we allow them to build on it.
We just basically choose, we don't want to pay taxes on it.
Yeah, I think they need to prove.
They have to prove it.
They have to prove it. There's no other reason around. They have to prove it.
All right, it sounds like that's the consensus. So there you go.
I am perfectly in support of that.
All
All right,
right.
beautiful. Thank you very much. I will communicate that forward.
All right, so we have a handout here on the new
Yes, so this is
governor has
a quick summary. It does have a front and a back. I'm sure you guys have seen in the news that the House and the Senate and the governor have signed the House Bill 5002 and enacted as a public act number 2491. This introduces significant reforms to local planning and zoning practices to address the state's housing crisis. I just want to make sure I'm not. It should be at the very, very bottom. I will give you mine and copy.
Yeah, it's here.
I can, give me 1 second. I just got to open it.
This is not it?
No, it's at, no, Commissioner Lupo didn't have one, so, that was absolutely a hiccup then on my part. The legislation emphasized municipal engagement while setting structured goals to increase affordable housing availability. There's also a lot of other things in the bill besides what I have outlined below, including Monroe now has to create a fair housing rent commission and things of that nature. That doesn't necessarily affect us. There's some other things that are required for the state. So this is not all encompassing, but I did want to give this commission a couple highlights. My understanding is that the first selectman is working on having some people come and present to this commission But in case you guys are getting questions or bombarded in the street, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of how we think the top things are going to affect the town of Monroe. The first item is the minimum parking requirements. This bill prohibits zoning regulations from having a minimum off-street parking requirement for residential developments. So we're talking about larger residential develops, not any residential develop, but the larger ones. Unless there's a development-specific assessment of needed parking, that zoning regulation will have to be updated before July 1st, 2026. So we have time for a lot of this stuff, but it will be coming down the pike. At one point, they did consider also doing that for commercial, and that got adjusted in an amendment. So it's only for residential developments. It's not for commercial, industrial, or anything like that. We can still put our minimum parking requirements associated with that. The big one is the municipal fair share allocation. Each municipality is going to be assigned a specific affordable housing unit target based on regional needs. MetroCog preliminary calculated ours as 1,302 units. That would be over a 20-year time period. 25% study allocation, which is what would be required for the first 5 years, is 326 units. The towns are required to develop a priority plan. And then after that priority plan gets approved by the state, then we implement our zoning regulations to meet those targets. The first priority plan is due between June 1st, 2027 and June 1st, 2028. If for some reason a municipality is unable to meet their goals, they must provide justification and propose alternative targets. Obviously, we can't force a developer to develop in town. We can't force someone to do, residential housing. So it's not completely out of our control, and they do give the ability to justify that. The adoption of these provisions is actually optional. However, state funding and grants are prioritized for towns that align with the bill's objectives, which is very much encouraging volunteer compliance. That's a larger issue of whether we'll opt into that or not. But I just wanted to give the outline here. Fair share land inventory. The bill requires Monroe to report to the legislator on vacant and developable land. They have specific definitions of what that includes. And to create a process for municipalities to see an adjustment of their fair share allocation. So we talked about that 1,300 number. This allows us to talk about why we feel like based on the vacant and developable land we have, we would not be able to meet that. And we will have to do that inventory before October 1st of this year. Priority housing development zones. The bill creates an alternative standard for a municipality to qualify for a moratorium under the 830G. In the past, you can apply for a moratorium if you make progress for a certain amount of percentage points in a certain time period. This allows a secondary option to do that. Basically, if we create like priority housing development zones, opportunity zones, that these zones can be developed as a right, eliminating the need for a public hearing before local and planning zoning boards, that will allow us to apply for a moratorium. Again, this is not a requirement. This is something we can voluntarily do. You're allowed to put those regulations into effect after July 1st of this year. Commercial property conversions. The bill allows the conversion of commercially zoned properties into middle housing residential units, up to 9 total units as of right. So that means without requiring a public hearing, a variance, or a special exception permit, as long as there's no substantial impacts to the health and safety, and it meets the applicable zoning requirements. They define middle housing, meaning duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, cottage clusters, and townhouses. And then I've also included the 2 definitions of cottage clusters and townhouses as it is stated in our regulations. Those zoning regulations will have to be updated by July 1st of 2026 next year. And then hostile architecture. Municipalities are prohibited from installing or constructing hostile architecture in or on any publicly accessible building or property that they own. That means like hostile architecture is anything that prevents homeless people from being able to utilize it. So one of the best examples is if you have a bench, when there's no railings or intermittent railings in that bench, a homeless person can lay down there and sleep there. What you'll see, especially in places like New York City and things like that, they'll put up like railings, like side rails in between, and that allows someone not to be able to lay down on it. that's considered to be hostile architecture. So you're not allowed to use that on municipal properties. And the last one, attorney fees under the Affordable Housing Land Use Appeal Procedure. So when a planning and zoning commission denies an 830G affordable housing project and that gets appealed, if the courts find that the agency's decision was made in bad faith or to cause undue delay, the court may award reasonable attorney fees to the applicant. So if a planning and zoning commission denies an application in bad faith or in order to delay it, their attorney's fees can be projected onto the town and we would have to pay their attorney fees. That is a summary. Any specific questions?
Do you have anything pleasant to tell us?
No. I mean, it's a lot. They're giving us some time to really look into this. Obviously, we'll talk to legal, and we'll think about, you know, how we're going to apply it, how this is going to apply to us, what we're going to do. We'll work through a lot of this in subcommittee. But I did want to make you guys aware of what the final meaning of the bill ended up being, because there was some improvements and stuff through that. But yeah, this is where we are.
Correspondence, we have none. Chairman's report, none. Any commissioner reports?
Report to motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Okay.
Dominic.
Now that Starbucks is finished, is there any update on the retention pond between Chipotle and Starbucks?
I can talk to James, but I believe that they satisfied all of his outstanding comments to remediate it in order for it to function, and they put like a black chain link fence around it.
I mean, all they did, they put that, I mean, I'd like to get your guys' opinion. I'll drop it. I won't bring it up. I mean, you guys think that looks like,
No, I don't know how, who's satisfied?
I mean, it's
I'm not satisfied here.
it's a black chain link fence with weeds growing on it.
Dude. No, I understand that, but I'm saying that now Rick changed it, but the part of the approval was never that.
Rick
What was it?
approved the stormwater improvements.
What was it
It
though?
was supposed to be underground detention,
Okay.
and they changed it.
And he changed it?
He changed it.
Okay.
He
We have
Had
it,
authorization to do that.
do we have it in writing that it was, well, at this point, it's moot anyway, because we're not gonna do, right.
But with
So, yes, Rick approved the design. The planning and zoning administrator at that time approved the design.
So we gotta live with
Our
it.
town engineer has been very hard with them to meet somewhere in the middle to make sure it is a functioning stormwater management system that meets the state regulations, because Rick doesn't, you know, the planning and zoning administrator at that time didn't know the
This looks
state
really bad.
regulations.
I mean,
And they tried to meet somewhere in the middle, but unfortunately, we can't, after he got an approval by town staff that signed off on, we can't now retroactively go back and say, never mind, can you do more?
I mean, I understand it doesn't look great, but like, what do you want to do with it?
Can we neaten it up a little bit?
that's what I'm saying.
Hey, give an example. Don't say let's.
We can ask, but we can't require that. Right, I
You
understand.
can ask.
We can say, hey, you know, there's been a lot of
Bushes
good
around
plans,
it.
can you make it look nice? But it's,
You just want
no
some planting to maybe some.
That's around it.
There is some, so when you have it, and I don't know the plan off the top of my head, but in general, when you have a stormwater detention basin, you actually can't plant on the berm and things of that nature because you want it to be able to function in a certain way. You also want access to some of it. So that James would have to be able to weigh in on if we could actually plant in those areas, because I know sometimes there's restrictions. I don't believe Connecticut's as strict as some other states. But we can ask, we can always ask.
I mean, we have two beautiful new buildings and in the middle, it's just a bunch of weeds and a chain link fence.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I just don't have the ability to enforce it.
But like, if I'm a landlord there, like, why would I want it to look like that? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
It's a cheaper option.
And they already have plans.
It's a cheaper option, dude.
That's the thing, yeah. Chipotle's not gonna eat because there's grass.
Maybe they'll volunteer to fix it.
Again, yeah, you asked.
I mean, if they put some, you know.
I mean, they
Planting.
planted the fence, right? Didn't we ask them to do the fence and they just painted it on their own? Well,
Oh, no.
No, I believe
That's-
the fence had to be stained as part of the approval. They didn't do it during the winter just because the weather conditions weren't great, but then they did finish it in the spring.
Right. So we have, the last item on the agenda is Thomas's report.
Thomas,
last item.
just gave his highlights. He was unable to be here tonight, but he gave his highlights. So it is up to the commission if you want to review this on your own, or if you'd like me to review each individual item, because I know some
You
people.
can review it.
Any questions about the items on the list?
It's a little warm.
Go over it next time.
All right.
We can review it on our own.
Okay.
Okay.
We're adults.
So that is in front of you for review, and obviously, as always, if you
It's
have
not
individual
here.
questions, please.
I know, it'd be nice if he was here, then we could do it with him. Not here, so we can.
What? When's she coming back?
He
Is he
is
coming?
back, but he still has a 2-month-old baby at home, so I don't want to make him do a night meeting yet because,
All right.
We're easing him in.
I mean, he's a 2-month-old baby at home, so we're letting
Two
him.
motions to
Get
adjourn.
them on Zoom.
No, I have one more item. This is going to be on the subcommittee agenda for Monday. Reminder, we have subcommittee on Monday, the 9th.
I will not be there.
Okay. One item for discussion is our pole sign regulations, our freestanding pole sign. So this commission, we talked about it as it relates to Starbucks. We do allow up to 20-foot high signs. We did recently just approve the signage for 615 Main Street, which is a Dollar General. That is what they ended up putting there. I believe it's a traditional Dollar General. It is not a DG Market. That's not what their signage is saying. Their sign is saying Dollar General. And it is again, another 20-foot high pole sign. It meets the regulations, but I think it's going to look a little interesting.
Because they're colors. It's yellow.
Bright yellow
Yeah.
with black writing, which is their logo. So, we can't regulate colors in their logos. That's free speech. That's their First Amendment right. But it's maybe something we want to, now that there is more commercial development coming into town. I know the first selectman is aware of it. And he's just asking that we generally take a look at it to see if it still aligns with the aesthetics of the town now that we have more commercial development coming in. And seeing if we want to change height requirements or, relook at that again. So we will have that on subcommittees conversation on Monday. But if anybody not on subcommittee has any comments, please let me know and we will absolutely communicate that.
Also, flags are popping up around town again.
Flags, yeah, I know. I feel the pharmacy has one up. It's new businesses is what happens. It's new businesses. They pop up and they do it. We're also really trying to keep up with the
Liquor store battle?
small signs, like the temporary signs that are in there. It's to the point now where I will walk in from my commute and I drive the same way into work every single day. And if I'm at a stop sign and I see them, we just pick them up and we go through. But I'm I just came in with 2 yesterday. How am I coming in with 2 today? How in 24 hours did more pop up?
The sandwich signs?
Yeah, the yard signs, they just multiply. They just and we've called them. It started
They're perennials.
yeah,
They grow every
it's exactly, we started calling them just right away, just being, hey, you can't have them. And I don't know if it's making a ton of difference, but we are trying.
I think it's making a difference.
I see less and less.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we had a
Wild.
resident talk about being deputized, but for those littles,
She's not the first one.
maybe for those
There's
little,
other
those little
volunteers.
signs, you tell them if they want to pull them, they can pull them.
Dollar a sign.
What we do is if.
I mean, I don't want to rip it down flags, but
We do take them and keep them for a while, and we call them, we tell them we have your signs, and, we'll keep them for a little bit, and they can come pick it up because they spent money on those signs.
places, big pile at DPW of the signs.
Yeah.
Especially
But,
political.
If they don't take it after a while, we don't keep
All
it.
right, this is awesome.
Okay, good. Then we have a.
I have made a motion to adjourn. I made a motion to adjourn.
That's trash.
Oh, wait, who is my motion? Who is my second?
Ryan Leon.
I'm in motion.
Second, Leon.
Second.
And I.
All those in favor?
Yay.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. 8:34.